Hey everybody, welcome to episode 112 of Making It. I'm Bob Clagett, here with Jimmy Diresta.
Good morning everybody. I have a nice deep voice because we're doing this early.
And very white. David Picciuto.
Hey guys, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we're recording early because our schedules got all messed up this week. So we all recently got out of bed and sound a little lower than normal.
Most of us have pants on.
That's right. Most of us do. We won't say which one doesn't, but his initials are Jimmy Diresta.
I have to turn the camera off to make a coffee.
Yeah, that would be nice. I would appreciate that very much.
Wow.
Sorry, I get the giggles.
Yeah. Cool. Well, other than sleeping, what have you been up to, Jimmy?
Moving a little bit at a time. You guys, maybe some of you guys have seen my recent vlog. Moving, and my theory is I got a few months actually. Truckload every week. One truckload of the heavy stuff every week. And Bob, I'm taking your suggestion. I'm going to leave a lot of the fodder, that consumables, materials and stuff. And then at the end of it all, I'll see if anybody wants to come and take whatever's left over, including some equipment and stuff that I just have redundancies in. And we'll see where it goes. You know, I'm trying to keep optimistic instead of feeling overwhelmed. You know, people are asking me, is this crazy? Is it crazy to move? I literally just have to pick stuff up, put it in my truck, and put it in a different location. And as long as I keep doing that, eventually the place will be empty. I just got to keep up with it. That's all. And besides that, I've been able to. I did my what I'm calling my 3-way bandsaw stand. I did a little Instagram movie on the introduction of the idea, and it's for my next Lincoln video. And now that I got my plasma table up and running, and we haven't talked since the crazy snowstorm, right, in New York?
Mm-mm.
And
No.
Yeah, the Torchmate in Lincoln sent the tech out to fix that machine because that machine, I think me and the tech were talking. He thinks it might have been on the set of Iron Man 3. Because when I asked Lincoln that I wanted a Torchmate table, they said they could give us some time, and then they came back to me and said, we have one that's out that we're going to get back. It's on the set of a movie, and once it's done, we'll send it to you. And that's the one that I got in October. And I tried to turn it on recently, and the software wasn't working out. So they sent the tech out, and I said to him, I go, it's going to be a crazy snowstorm tomorrow. He goes, it's okay. I don't mind. And this guy, Matt, came out. So he came out Monday night here in New York. It wasn't snowing last Monday. And yeah, it was a week ago, right? Was it a week ago? No. I can't even remember what day it is. What's today?
Wednesday? Wednesday.
Oh, so It was a week ago, I think. Anyway, he came out, and he came out the day it wasn't snowing, and he came to the house and worked on the machine. And, he was giving me some training on how to use it and stuff. And then he went back to his hotel, and that night, the major snowstorm hit. And so he and I were trudging through the snow all day Tuesday and Wednesday to get the machine up and going. And we got it going. So right away, I was like, I got to use the machine for a project for Lincoln. And I came up with this idea about this bandsaw stand. So if you have like a metal cutting bandsaw, it just basically takes this framework so you could stand it on either end. And then it has like a cantilever so you could make it into a chopping bandsaw with a little apparatus on the table. And so I just this now published that onto my Patreon just while we were hanging out here a few minutes ago. And we'll see how that goes. It's a little conceptual. We'll see. And I made it, and it's been in the shop. And yesterday I picked it up a couple times and actually cut stuff with it. And the best thing about it is that it stands on its head, so it's always standing in the room. You ever have one of those metal cutting bandsaws that just flop all over the place? There's no easy way for it to stand in any direction. It's like a carcass of like a big giant fish. You pick it up and it flops everywhere. It doesn't stand anyway. And that's the one thing that always annoyed me about it. It has a hook on it, so if you're on a construction site, you could hook it like in a framed wall, but that's not really convenient in a shop environment. You got to dedicate a space somewhere for it, and if you're not near that hook, you got to kind of walk all the way over to it. So I worked on that, and today I think I'm going to start my core video right after we get off. I'm going to go over to the lumberyard. I have a concept that has been in my mind for a long time. It's not complicated and it's not groundbreaking, but it's finally have opportunity to do something. And years and years ago, I was driving around the city, and there was a big dumpster on 21st Street. And I just peeked in the dumpster, and the dumpster was full of these metal bins. Apparently an old factory was closing, and they threw out these bins. They're like little job bins. Like obviously they must have been used to go at different stations. And they're bins 18 inches by 16 inches by 4 inches deep. and I had as many as I can carry on my Vespa. That's as many as I have. I could have taken a dumpster full, but I took a stack that's like they nest pretty tightly, kind of like plastic cups because they're thin gauge metal. So I took a stack that's about 18 inches high. So I have about 30 of them, 40 of them, and they're all over my life. If you come into my shop environment, you see things in them everywhere. So I'm going to make a bin wall that carries those. So it's going to be a wall, and it's something I wanted to make from the beginning of that, finding those in the garbage almost 15 years ago. So now I'm finally going to do that. So I have really long-term trash picking plans. They never go away.
So can we talk about the video that you put out about the ammunition plant? I know you had to take it down.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So he put up a video. You can tell everybody about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, when I was in Louisville last week, and Bob, when next time you visit Louisville, remind me, I'll hook you up with the guy. It's a great place to go to. I was invited by a guy. It's not in Louisville. It's near Louisville. And he said, come take a look at this place. He described it to me a year ago through the email. And I called him when I was nearby. And on the way out of Louisville, I stopped at this place. And it's incredible. And he was more than happy to show me around the whole place. It's an abandoned, not abandoned in the way that no one even knows what's going on there, but it's a closed ammunitions factory. It's been closed since the 70s. And now the government gave it back to the community. So there's like a board of directors that decides what to do with the property. And they parceled off a piece of it to Amazon, is used as a distribution center. It's like 6,000 acres. So they don't really know what to do with it. And on that acreage there's buildings, and every one of the buildings is frozen in time in the 1940s. And in time, as the property becomes developed, the buildings will be bulldozed, and there's tons of wood and material and all kinds of stuff, and lights and lamps and hardware and fixtures, and it's all been decontaminated. That's one important thing. There's not like bales of gunpowder laying around. It's all gone. And it's just these buildings. And so I did a video on it, and I kept asking my friend, is it okay? Is it okay? Is it okay? And he's like, yeah, I don't care. And then we went one afternoon, then we went the next day, which when we spent a lot of time. I did a drone shot and stuff. And I said, is it cool? And he's like, yeah, it's cool. And then at the end of the day, he goes, maybe I shouldn't be in it. I was like, okay, cool. So I'll just, you know what? I go, we'll keep it mysterious. We'll just never say where it is. We'll never say who you are. And he goes, okay, that's better. And I put it up, and like within an hour, he wrote me an email, and he goes, dude, because I'm getting in trouble. He goes, everybody knows, and somebody on the board of directors is a fan of yours. And the only reason they were upset with him is because they just don't want people banging on the door saying, I want free stuff. I want free stuff. That was the only reason. Had nothing to do with like, any like declassified or anything like that. They just don't want people bugging them. And then what was happening is people were putting it in the comments. Oh, I know where this is. This is so-and-so. Here's the Google aerial map of it. And I kept trying to keep up with deleting those comments. And like throughout the days, like another one is up. You better go check it. There's another one. So I disabled the comments so people couldn't do that, which I hate doing, but I did it for that video. And then after a little while, he goes, like the next day, he goes, could you just do me a favor and just hide the video? And so that's what I did. I just made it unlisted. And unlisted means you could find it, but it's not easy to find.
So Bob, when will it be your turn to take down a video?
I don't know. Hopefully not anytime soon, but you never know. Well, the reason I was curious about that is because you said your long-term trash picking plans, and in that video, you went around and cut down light fixtures, and you filled up the back of like at least one truck, if not more trucks.
No, just one. I mean, I was like I said, I was on my way out of town, so I drove through the city that it was in, and I wanted to come back. I went and visited. I did a recon trip one morning, and then the next day, when it was time to actually leave town, is when I went through. I took all I could fit one trip.
What are you going to do with those? Do you have any plans?
The idea was to try and use them for the new gas station place, which I'll give you guys an update if you're curious. But definitely, I took enough to put in my porch, under my back porch. I have a big wraparound porch upstate, and we're going to use a couple lamps in the house. I mean, I have no intentions on selling them for money, which is what my buddy kept saying. He goes, sell them if you want, sell them if you want. I was like, I don't really need this kind of money, and if I sell, I'd rather keep them for myself just because they have a great story. And then these cage lights, my friend Kevin really likes these cage lights, so that's why I stole a bunch of those. I took a bunch of those. Actually, I was actually allowed to take them. And
you were given a bunch of those.
I was given a bunch of those, so that's why we went around and I took a bunch of those because they're really cool, and so I'll use a couple of those in a new shop that I'll eventually build wherever that's going to be. And yeah, I just like also just love the history of having like old hardware and knowing where it came from, and those are the easy pickings, you know. Like I could have taken valves and stuff, but then I would have had to like unbolt stuff, and those are the easy pickings. We took a scale. If there was one of those scales, there was 100 of them. At every station, there were these big scales. They would weigh. It's crazy. They would take wood pulp. So somewhere in the world, there was a forest. The forest was cut up. They take wood pulp, put it into these mulchers, these things like these big steel claws that spin. So that room where I took all these like gooseneck lamps, and at every station there was a scale. They'd fill the hopper and weigh how much wood is in there, and then they would pull the chute, it would fall into the grinder, and the grinder would grind it up, and then they'd put it in these bins and then move it. And the wood pulp is part of the ammunition fodder. It gets soaked in nitroglycerin. Crazy stories, just the process that my friend was telling me. And all to blow up people's houses and stuff. It's crazy. It's like this mass industrial complex just to make bombs and gunpowder to shoot projectiles. And they would make there was a sewing room where there was lots of sewing machines. I took one old sewing machine. I could have taken 10. The sewing machines were used to make bags of canvas, and then the canvas bags were filled with explosive and then sewn shut. And then those bags were put into the bottom of like a 10-inch gun on a battleship, and then the bullet, and then you put the bag in, and then you close it, and then it gets fired. So pretty amazing stuff, like I said, in the industrial war complex, and how they think things through, and how making gunpowder is a very natural process. It's like veganism. They take trees and cut up trees and mulch them up and soak them with nitroglycerin. Crazy stuff.
There are no animal parts in gunpowder. Actually, there could be.
No, it's all vegan. Vegan gunpowder. Yeah, it's
vegan gunpowder.
And then great. And every building is like is in coordination with the previous building. There's like train tracks next to this one because this is where these get packed, and it goes on here, and then it goes to the next building, and there were areas where there's like explosive proof architecture. Like there's like these big giant berms next to the train where they're loading, so that in case the train explodes, everything was designed to explode up, not out. So there are certain buildings that have like these big berms around them, so that if there was an accident, the explosion would go straight up. And the interesting thing about the plant was there never was an accident. They had like 100% safety record as far as the big safety stuff goes. It's in my videos somewhere, so if you want to look for it, you can look for it. I'll just email me and I'll just send you the link.
Cool, David. What about you?
Well, before I get into what I'm doing, you jokingly mentioned vegan gunpowder, and I'm gonna take off on a tangent here. But yesterday I was searching for vegan leather, which there's plenty of, but I was looking for vegan leather that I can cut on the laser, which want to make sure I'm not cutting anything that could be hazardous. And I found this stuff called Craftex. Have you ever heard of this or used it?
I think so. Is it like the MDF of leather? Is that it?
Yeah, it's a paper-like substance that has leather qualities that says you can wash it. Well, I just ordered not a bunch, but a couple yards of it, and I'm gonna play around with it.
I think I heard of it.
And it's called Craftex, Craftex, and it looks promising because you can do things to get some different textures out of it by washing it and letting it dry in certain ways. But it looks to be all safe materials. So anyways, I was just seeing if you guys have worked with it, and that's my tangent. All right. So once I do get it and work with it, I'll let everybody know. It could be a cool new material, and it's fairly cheap too, as far as fabric and materials. But anyway, some of you guys know that my father passed away a couple weeks ago, and that's why I haven't been putting out much content. He spent the last 2 weeks of his life in hospice, which he was there when family was there. We're all with him, and then we had to do all the other funeral stuff. And before I get any emails or comments, I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. I'm surrounded by awesome, wonderful family. I've got I married the most amazing person in the world, so I'm doing good. I have everything I need. I don't need anybody to feel sorry for me or ask me if I need anything. I'm doing great. So I'm not saying that for pity, but that leads into what I'm working on, which is my dad was a very well-known pool player here in Northwest Ohio. Played in all kinds of like 9-ball tournaments and 8-ball pool leagues, and was really, really good. And so he has a couple of high-end cue sticks that I'm making a display case for. Going to retire them, and they're gonna hang on the wall. And the case, the video should be out by the time this comes out. So the case has a couple of his cue sticks, and then it has a cue ball, an 8-ball, and a 9-ball. I was talking to my buddy Jonathan Katz-Moses, who's a fan of everybody here, and during this talk, I was like, yeah, I'm going to take a rack of pool balls and display it in the case. And he came up with the idea of like, what if you just put the 9-ball? Since he loved playing 9-ball, that's kind of like the final, you win, you're done. And I was like, oh, that's great. And so I took his idea and I kind of ran with it, where the cue sticks are not screwed together, they're broken down. So in my head, it's kind of like you've won the match and you've broken down the cue stick, and here's the final ball. So it's cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's made out of cherry, but the background is green felt that I got from Michael's. My dad had a pool table, and when it comes time to change the cloth on that pool table, I'm gonna take the old cloth and replace the felt that I use with the cloth from my dad's pool table. So it'll be like a little memorial for him, and I think it came out really good. Sweet. And the cool thing that I think is it has some hidden storage in the back. So there's some personal things of his and some papers and rings and just things I don't know what to do with that I don't want to get rid of. I'm just going to store it in this display case, and it has a nice little place to keep these things.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, that's good. And you know that even if you do get emails and stuff from people, it's just because they care about you and they just want to, be there for you.
I totally understand that. And I totally dislike email.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. If you want to be helpful, don't send David emails.
Oh, man. And I mean no disrespect. Like, send me a tweet. I'll reply. I reply to tweets. But yeah, I totally understand that. I'm doing really good. My family, my dad I'm the only child. My dad wasn't married. But my dad had 4 other brothers and sisters, and every single one of them will drop what they're doing to help me out with stuff. Dealing with a family member passing away, it turns out to be there's so many unknowns. I've never had to organize and a funeral and the showing, and now we're going through. We have to do all this probate court stuff, and there's lawyers involved, and people make money off of other people's deaths, and it's just weird that we have to go through all this legal stuff now, and it's but my family, they're all right there, and they're all helping me through this. And he had a bone cancer called multiple myeloma, which is a really painful thing, and I'm actually I'm relieved more than anything right now that he doesn't have to fight this anymore. And
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty tough the last few weeks. So
yeah,
that's what I'm up to. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm doing good.
Don't feel sorry for him. Just love on him. That's what we say.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, I'm glad to have you back. I know you've had a lot going on, so I'm glad to have you.
Thank you.
Freed up and back. For me, what have I been doing? I traveled. My kids are on spring break this week, so at the end of last week, we took a quick trip to Kentucky to go visit some family. Spent a few days up there, and we actually got back yesterday, so it was just a really quick trip. But here's how crazy my wife is. We left Atlanta yesterday, which is 4 hours away, in the morning, drove here, and we got here. She dropped me and my dog off, grabbed a couple more things of clothes, got back in the car with all the kids, and drove to Florida another 4 hours to go see her family in Florida while they're on spring break. I had to get back and start working again. Thanks, guys. It's up to you that no, I'm just kidding. I had a lot to do, so I had to come back. But yeah, so she got right back in the car and left. But the cool thing about that is now I have a couple of days of untethered, I can just get a lot done. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And last week I worked on a video that'll be coming out tomorrow if I can get the voiceover done tonight. And it's another foam project. A friend of mine, actually the guy I stayed with in Atlanta, works for a video game company. And they wanted a piece from one of their characters to have at video game conferences and stuff, so people could put it on and take pictures with it. And so it was interesting because it was this game is all two-dimensional. He's the main artist on it, so he draws all these characters and all these weapons and these costumes, but he draws them in 2D. And so he had a few different 2D images from different perspectives, and then he gave me those, and I had to make an actual wearable 3D helmet type piece from it. And it's not a complicated piece, but it was interesting looking at a 2D image that was basically like 3-color. There's no high detail in it or anything. There's no weathering or any textures. It's all kind of cartoon rendering, like a real basic 3-color. And to take that image and turn it into a 3-dimensional object that has those colors but also has to look like not a cartoon thing. It has to look like a real world thing. So that was kind of an interesting thing to figure out. And it was all foam fabricated, so it's nice and squishy and safe and lightweight and stuff like that. But that was fun. So that'll be out this week. And check this out. This has potential to change the podcast. You ready for this? Okay, I got this message from my brother last week. And for Christmas this past year, my sister gave him the 23andMe test. Are you familiar with this?
Yep.
No.
Okay, so the 23andMe test is like a DNA testing thing where you swab your mouth or something and send it in.
Yeah.
And they process it and they tell you like where your family's from and how much of this you are and how much of that you are and all these different things. And they used to say, you have this percentage of having heart disease and this percentage of having liver disease and all this, and they've stopped doing that part of it, I think. But so he gets back the list of where we're from and what type of ethnicities we are mixed up and stuff. And the thing he wrote here is most of it was pretty much meaningless, but in the list of relatives is Ariana Picciuto, a fourth cousin, with whom I share 0.36% DNA in 2 sequences. So there's a remote possibility that you and David are 5th to 7th cousins.
How is that crazy?
That's funny because I have I didn't go through that company. I went through another company, Ancestry, something or other, and I'm expecting my results back at any moment. So if a Clagett shows up,
that would be crazy.
That would be crazy. And you will be invited to the Picciuto family reunion this year.
Yes, I get to go.
They actually
find
find surnames that are attached to your DNA. That's crazy. How do they do that?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume that maybe this Ariana Picciuto person has done the same test.
Oh, right. So it has to be in the same pool.
They they just look for like overlap. I have no idea. That's just a guess. But yeah, so cool, cuz.
So
wild.
Here's a quick fun fact. Champion boxer Rocky Marciano. You guys ever hear of this guy from the 20s or 30s, 40s? But famous professional boxer. His mother was a Picciuto, and so I'm related to a former heavyweight champion.
Crazy.
Wow, that's cool.
Okay, here's another one for you. This is funny. Have you ever heard of Emily Post? Emily Post was the quintessential like manners person. She wrote these books on etiquette and manners, and so like anyone who grew up with like using the actual etiquette and stuff, kind of not in our generation, the previous generation and before.
Okay.
If they did, it was all Emily Post stuff. So it turns out that Emily Post was actually a Clagett before she was a Post, and we're pretty directly related to her. And then we found out, while we were talking, or soon after we were talking about that my wife is actually related to Martha Stewart.
Oh.
And so we have, for as messy and unkept as we are related to 2 kind of designy, etiquette-y people who are famous for it.
That's where you come from. Your politeness
Oh,
and your etiquette.
could be, I guess, maybe.
Jimmy has
But
no Martha Stewart in him.
Now, you know,
Or
a funny.
Emily Post.
I did go on a date with Martha Stewart's daughter. Did I ever tell anybody that story?
What?
Dude, we were almost related.
Yep.
Well,
I would have been your cousin by marriage if that worked out. I went on a date with Alexis Stewart about 10 years ago. My sister knows one of her friends, and we were both single at the time, and my sister calls me. She's like, "You want to go on a date with Alexis Stewart?" I'm like, "Who the hell's that?" She goes, "Martha Stewart's daughter." I go, "Sure, I'll do it for the story." And then within 3
in case
hours,
I have a podcast someday.
within 3 hours, my sister goes, "Okay, you're all set. This is her number. Text her." And we texted, and we met in Tribeca for a couple of drinks. I wasn't drinking, but she had a few drinks in her. And she had just come from a party. This is when she was doing this a radio show on Sirius with her partner, her on-air partner, whose name I don't remember. So her and Jen was the girl's name. So Jen is a friend of my sister's. So it was Jen and Alexis radio show. And what happened was Jen also knew somebody that I went to high school with that was my age. My sister's younger. And Kathleen was talking to Jen one day about a jewelry thing, and my name came up, and she's like, "Oh, I heard about your brother. He's single. Oh my God, I'm gonna hook him up with Alexis." And so we went and went on a date, and there was absolutely zero chemistry. I think we both wanted to go to the bathroom and leave. We were both going to go to the bathroom at the same time and then leave. But it didn't. No,
Bob, do you feel like there are so many Jimmy stories that we have not heard yet?
Actually, I have heard that one before somewhere. I don't remember.
might have told you guys.
I would assume that there are. I'm sure there are more that we have not heard than we have heard.
Yeah, she was nice. One thing about her, obviously, she did go into a little bit about how her mother was, railroaded, for lack of a better term, about the whole tax thing, and she ended up having to do jail time and everything. And we talked about having a house in the country versus a house in the city, and she said, don't think that you could use your house in the country as a tax write-off, because she said when her mother, she's like, they checked everything, like when my mother's whereabouts and all. She said, when the FBI is against you or the investigation, there's absolutely nothing you can hide. So, that's no secret. But we talked about TV and production companies and stuff like that. It really just turned into almost like a business meeting. And she was very cordial and she was very classy. And the funny thing is that was it. We met that and we left and we never spoke again. And then my sister-in-law is like, "Oh my God, are you going to be the father of a baby?" I go, "What are you talking about?" This was about a time when, if anybody wants to do the Google research, it was at a moment in time when she was talking about wanting a baby. And so she was like talking on the radio show about wanting a baby, and she was looking for a candidate to have a baby with.
Oh.
And I didn't know any of this until after. And I don't know. I don't know if I was a candidate to potentially make a granddaughter or a child for Martha Stewart. But I wasn't. I absolutely did not.
What a crazy baby that would be.
A trash-picking millionaire
It would be
baby.
this little like trash-picking kid running around with an axe hanging off his belt, wearing like the tidiest Martha Stewart clothes you can imagine. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are we going to talk about today? We're like 30 minutes in.
I know. We're 30 minutes in, and our topic today is perfect because it's all over the place. We're going to answer some Twitter questions,
Nice.
and this podcast has been all over the place. So, the first one comes from Dustin Penner, which got to hang out
Dustin.
with a couple months ago. Good dude. YouTube disappears tomorrow, and you have to start from zero. What do you do differently?
Yeah.
So, I know a lot of us, YouTube is our main bread and butter, but a lot of us have eggs in many, many baskets because you never know what can happen. And I have multiple YouTube channels. I have a website. I'm selling plans. I have Patreon and writing books. And so I would totally panic if YouTube went down tomorrow. But if YouTube went down, there's going to be something there to replace it. Casey Neistat had a great video yesterday where he was talking about YouTube's lack of communication with its creators and how it said YouTube right now has a monopoly, but things change so fast. Competitors are going to come up, and there's going to be some competition real soon. And if YouTube goes down, I'm ready for the next thing, you know. And I have backups. I'll write more books. I'll sell more plans. I'll do more on my website. So I will panic, but I think I'd be okay.
Yeah, I think it would be a short-term panic for all of us, like in the, oh no, you know, but then, I mean, so one of this question has come up before in person with some people. I think one of the cool things about what we do is that by nature, we like make stuff out of nothing.
Yeah.
That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
So like if the thing that we're using goes away, we make another thing. And I'm not saying that we all necessarily would make another YouTube, but I think it would just be a matter of like rolling in a new direction and just shifting our focus onto something else. Like I know for me, right, if from like a right now, here's what's available perspective, Twitch would be a thing that I could immediately turn in that direction and dump way more time into that. It's not as big for me as YouTube is, obviously, but it's another platform that engages the same type of people in a different way. And so I could easily shift in that direction, focus on that while looking for like a YouTube replacement or, you know, building my own media server type thing to put my videos back up somewhere. Because I have all those backed up as well. So I own that content. I have that content on a hard drive, multiple hard drives that I could just put somewhere if I needed to have it available online. So I don't know, like that's not a real big concern for me. I do think eventually YouTube will either, I don't know that it's going to like break down and fall away, but I think eventually somebody will come up and compete with it at its same level so that the audience will start to be split between YouTube and between whatever this other thing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
you guys remember?
And you know, if that's, what was that?
I was going to say, you guys remember Friendster and MySpace? You know how popular they were for a split second, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah. But, I mean, the different thing with video is that it's technically it's just a much bigger beast to tame. You know, like the amount of file information that has to be moved around and, you know, doing things quickly so that people stay and actually watch stuff. Like, there's a reason that YouTube is what it is, because they've continually been improving that stuff over time. They've made it easy for people to watch videos and not have to worry about plugins and not have to worry about like having a particular speed of internet. And you know, they've solved a lot of that stuff that's not really obvious. Those aren't features that you go like, oh wow, they can stream at 360 if I only have 360 bandwidth, but it's a thing that makes it possible to use. So I think it would actually be pretty difficult for somebody to come along and one-for-one compete with them, but it's inevitable that someone will compete in some way.
Can you guys hear that?
No.
The ding?
There's sirens going off in the background here.
Uh-oh.
It turns out...
That's my siren.
Sorry.
You can't take my sirens.
That's my thing.
There's a statewide Ohio fire tornado drill at 9:50 today, 9:50 a.m. And that's what there's sirens going off right now. I just wanted to say it's not Jimmy this time, it's me.
And we have those on Wednesdays too. We have it like once a month.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I had a thought. I think if we were all back to the wall with no means for posting on video, I think what we could probably do is pool our resources, you know, the maker community, because we're all so good at communicating with each other and sharing, you know, behind the scenes stuff. Like, what do you think if we would start like YouTube Man-Made or something like that, where we all pool and, you know, we figure out a subscription-based thing where we could all like pay for the servers and build a database where we could all repost our videos. That would obviously be a tremendous undertaking, but the idea of basically making a mini YouTube for what it is that we do and keeping our fan base in the loop and making it, instead of each one of us trying to like make our own storage content website, we could pool our resources, and if whatever it is per month to pay for it until it's up and running, and you know, basically like you know, the inmates taking over the asylum.
There is no real competition between all the different YouTubers, at least in the maker space. Everybody's pretty friendly with each other. We're all we do these events together, and everybody gets along great. And that's a great thing, because if we all work together, we can all grow together and learn from each other. And I've learned so much just from talking to you guys behind the scenes and going to these various events. And the thing is a lot of us have completely different business models. Like my business model is selling plans and getting sponsorships. Steve Ramsey's business model is the complete is just like sponsorships, and Mark Spagnolo is the Woodworkers Guild, and so we all do things a little bit different, and we're all growing and helping each other.
Yeah. I think there's the cool overlap thing there is that we could work together even more closely. If YouTube went away, we could work even more closely and still survive. Still make it kind of symbiotic.
Next question comes from Dan Perry. He says, what do you do with all the crap you make? Like, I know Jimmy is a hoarder, but what about you and Bob? And this was Jimmy. So, Jimmy, so let's talk about all the stuff that you make. Where are all your knives and swords and everything?
On his belt.
On his belt,
carries
yeah,
them.
Yeah.
They're all right here in front of me, be ready to go on my pants once I put them on.
Yes.
No, they're all. I have there's a drawer in my workshop, and when fans come over, I usually open that drawer up and lay everything out. If you'll notice, Brett has been my new shop hang around, Brett McAfee, and on Instagram, Brett has laid out yesterday. You know who was over yesterday? Ben Ueda from Homemade Modern.
I saw that. Yeah.
Ben was hanging out with us, so. He showed Ben some of the stuff, and then Brett took a couple of pictures of everything laid out on the table. So I have all those tools kind of just right nearby. So when people come over, they want to take pictures with them. I have a couple of the hatchets laying around. The more like sexy ones, like the black ones with leather and stuff on them, I have them here in the house so they don't get too destroyed from the dust and mold in the basement. And here in my apartment, I'm looking up on my shelf. I have a couple of the more smaller precious things I made, like the magnifying glass and a couple of the little safe keep boxes that I've made. So I keep everything around. I anticipate one day having sort of like a museum room either in a shop or wherever I end up having my new workshop. And I would have everything kind of displayed there. Or if anybody wanted to like host a show, I would have all that stuff at the ready to put in a show. But I keep it all nearby. And right away, like the knife and the cane, everybody right away. I must have gotten 10 phone calls or 10 emails this week. I want to buy that. I got all the money in the world. I want to buy that. And then when I tell people how much I want for it, they're like, "You're out of your mind." I'm like, "I'm not the one offering it for sale. You're the one that's trying to give me
You said you had all the money in the world. What's the problem?
Yeah. Some guy said, I didn't see the follow-up comment, but I just happened to, some guy goes, "Name your price. I want that." And so I said, "What's your price?" And somebody underneath wrote $4. It was so stupid. I started laughing, but I don't know if there was a real follow-up answer. I haven't looked yet, but that's the knife and the cane thing. So like that and the guitar, everyone's like, "Name a price, I want one." And so the standard price for the AK-47 guitar is $6,000. That's what I tell everybody. So I get probably 5 emails a month. How much for the AK-47 guitar? And I just write 6K send, and then I never hear from anybody. That's like my way of saying screw off. 6K send. And I don't think that's outlandish for
I would have thought way more than
guitar.
That.
Yeah, I mean it's $1,000 for the guitar because it's not a great, it's like a great, it's a reasonable Ibanez, and then $5,000 for the labor, which isn't that involved, and for me it's not that involved, and so far nobody's going for it. But I keep everything around. Actually, I just was on the phone with Wyclef's manager the other day. We might do another project together, a different guitar for a different artist, and I said, "Where's Wyclef's guitar? I'll need that for reference." And he goes, "I talked to him the other day, and he said it's a crazy story." I go, "What does that mean?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm going to get him on the phone right now and ask." So when you said to Wyclef, "Where is the guitar Jimmy made?" his response was, "It's a crazy story." So it's probably lost in the world. So if anybody knows where my AK-47 guitar is, send me a secret email, and we'll work on getting it back.
Some guys got it on eBay for $5,999.
Jimmy, would you say that's the project that put you on the map?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's I remember Wyclef has a manager, Anthony, and Tony, and Jerry. And when I made that video, I was about to sell it to Make, and Tony says, "Don't sell it to Make. Keep it on your own channel. Don't be stupid." And I was like, because I was in that schedule where I had to have something for Make every 2 weeks, and I was like, you know what? So I skipped a week and left it on my channel, and at some of the advice of them and Bob, you've told me a few times, make sure you put the good stuff on your channel. And it's almost at 8 million views, which is huge for me. And it still gets, we all have that one video that like goes nuts, and that's my one video that still gets talked about. And I get emails all the time from these sort of bottom feeders that are like, hey, will you sell us that video? It's over 3 years old. Do you still want to use it? And like, you think I'm stupid that I'm going to be able to sell my AdSense to them? We'll give you $1,000 right now up front. So that's the one video that generates a lot of junk mail and a lot of inquiries. But it's good. I'm really glad that it worked out the way it did. I would be really annoyed if it had 8 million views and it was on the Make channel. That would drive me nuts.
Bob, I'm going to let you go next because I might have the same answer as you.
Okay. I mean, most of the things that I make, I historically have tried to make things that had a purpose. So I would go around and look for something that needed a thing or needed an improvement or whatever, or a friend that needed something for their home, and try to make that so that it had a place to go. But I'd say in the last year, I've run out of places to put those things. Like, I don't need any more tables in my house. I don't need any more lights or any more. Well, actually, I do. But, the needs are pretty much taken care of. So, at this point, I try to make things that I know I can give to someone who, like the bar top arcade. I still have it, but eventually I'll probably give that to someone who's interested because I don't use it. I don't need it. I don't have a place for it. But so pretty much everything is in my office. Like, which is crazy because there's no room in here at all. But like the log bench that I have, the one I made that's like the log upside down, and it's flat on the top, steel frame. I made that and I was really happy with it. I carried it from the shop into this room, set it on the floor, and it's been there ever since. Never sat on it, never put it in the house. It just, I didn't need it, so I don't have a place to put it. And like looking around here, all the prop type stuff I've made is just in the office. Yeah, I don't have a place for any of it, which is frustrating. And I don't want to keep things just to keep them.
Are we allowed to talk about what's behind you right now?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Teaser.
Couple weeks, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So what's your answer?
So my answer is mostly I make things that I need. Or in the past, I've made a lot of things that I've tried to sell at craft shows. Or I give away a lot of things on Patreon, too. A couple things lately, some bigger things we don't know what to do with. I made a kitchen cart with a removable serving tray on top. That's still in my shop. That is being used to hold junk right now in my shop. So I don't know what to do with it because we don't have room, but we're hoping in our next house there is a little bit more room where we can use this. The hot dog table is now, it moved from the awkward spot in the dining room to the awkward spot in our living room. It just doesn't fit anywhere. And then the live edge walnut bench is also, it's made for like an entry hallway, which we don't really have one. Our front door just opens right up into the living room. So it's also awkwardly placed in the living room. We have a relatively small house, but maybe we're hoping our next house is a little bit bigger. But mostly I make really small things, little crafty type things, and so there's room for them, or they're given away, or I'm gonna upgrade things. Like one of my upcoming projects is taking a turntable and removing the plastic and replacing it with wood. And I want to do more things like that. I want to take things I already have and do an upgrade with them, because I don't need junk. I guess junk is the wrong word for the things that I make, but I don't need more things. So I'm just going to upgrade things.
Unnecessary things.
Yeah.
I mean, junk is that.
Junk is that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's tough because you want to keep making stuff, but that stuff does have to go somewhere. And that, you can either like let it just make whatever you want and let it pile up, or you have to let that lack of space and stuff inform what you make. And that's kind of a drag, because then you're like, well, then I only can make things, or typically only make things that, I can find a place to shove, or they have to be of a certain size or whatever. And that starts to get kind of limiting,
Mm-hmm. All right, one more quick question. Let's see. Somebody asked, and I can't find the tweet now. I'm sorry, but somebody asked if we saw the Peter Brown video where he talked about comparing your YouTube channel to other YouTube channels, and I kind of want to expand on that just a little bit of just comparing yourself to other people in general, and how it may not be the healthiest thing. I know Bob saw the video. I don't think Jimmy saw the video yet. He says it's in his.
I haven't watched it. I have it loaded, but I haven't watched.
Yeah, and but. Bob, can you remind us what Peter was saying in the video?
Yeah, he actually talked about me, which was kind of funny. But, yeah, so basically he was just saying that when he got started on YouTube, he would look at other channels that were in his kind of vertical, in his genre, that were doing well, and look at them and compare his videos to theirs and say, like, wow, theirs are so much more professional. I mean, he actually called out all three of us and said, these guys, I really like their videos. They're very professional. Mine look less professional than theirs. And so, therefore, I should improve my quality, my production value, to try to get more like theirs so that I can get the same growth that they get. Mm-hmm. So, and that's a very logical, if you see success, you mirror that success to try to get the same success. And he brought up a conversation that he and I had at Maker Faire a couple of years ago, where he told me that. He said, I want to start upping the value of my production value and everything. And as soon as he started saying this in the video, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that conversation. But I basically said, like, why? You're successful by take everybody else out of the picture. You're successful in what you're doing, and people like what you do. So don't change what you do to try to get a different audience. Just build the audience that you have, or something to that effect. But yeah, so that was my suggestion to him was, and I think it is to everybody, that I think it's really easy to compare yourself to other people and to try to mirror what they're doing to get the success that they have. But, and Peter said this very well in this video, that's a fake success. That's a fake, it's a fake version of you and of what you want to do to try to get viewers. And I think the problem with that is that, well, one, it's not really the truth. It's not really what you would naturally do. And that's going to make it really hard to maintain. That's going to make it really hard to sustain over a long period of time. And eventually you're going to get tired of that. You're going to get tired of the facade and of the extra work and of all the stuff, and you're going to let it fall away, and you're going to become who you are again. And when you do, all those people that signed up were like, wow, this guy's production is so great. I'm going to start watching his videos. Then when you fall back, those people are going to go like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, what's going on here? And they're going to fall away. So, what did you do for yourself? Nothing. You grabbed a bunch of people, and then they fell away because it wasn't what you actually wanted to produce. Versus doing what you do, and people jumping on board and being interested because of who you are and because of what you create. Those are the people that you want anyway. Those are the people that are like dedicatedly interested in what you are. Those are the people that you want around you, I think.
And that's not just YouTube. That's just anything.
Oh yeah, that's life.
That's life.
I didn't see the thing, but if someone like Peter was, well, let's talk about Peter in general. Peter was looking at other people. What's interesting is you got to just keep making videos, and your personality will start to come to the surface, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody that's not likable, then that's a problem you got to deal with. But Peter is very likable, and I love his experimentation. It's almost like hanging out with like a hip science teacher every time you watch a video, because he'll drop and break something. The salt piece will shoot off the lathe or whatever it is, and he just rolls with it. And then he ends up. It's like you're kind of going on this like discovery with him. Whereas me, I do that discovery, but I keep it all internalized, and I just try and only show the good stuff. And so that's just how I got started. But I love watching Peter's videos for the sake of like he's basically inside out. I'm showing it the other way, and so and he just hit 400,000 subscribers, which is amazing. I mean, I think he's growing pretty quick, and I think people really dig the experimentation, and he goes off on these tangents like with the resin, and then it's like what can we put in resin? Let's play with salt, and let's play with melted plastic. So I think it's great in that the way, and that's a perfect example of just keep making stuff, and your personality will come to the surface. And like I said, you got to be a likable guy like Peter. But I mean, there's a lot of successful YouTubers that aren't likable. I'm not going to say who, but they have very successful channels.
It's helpful to be likable, but you're totally right. Like, I get people watch my first videos. I don't know why they still get views, but they get views. I guess just the subject matter. But people always comment now on those videos like, "Wow, you were really depressed when you made this one," or like, "Are you okay?" They're thinking that's like a current video, and I'm all of a sudden depressed. But the fact of the matter is, like, I didn't realize that I was, like, nervous at the time, or like being uptight about being on camera. But now looking at them, I'm like, yes, I was extremely nervous about how I was presenting myself and how I sounded. And just by doing it 175 times or whatever, I've just let that down a little bit. And I've understood, like, I have to move my hands a little bit more than I would in person because it looks natural. It's not like I'm faking it, but like, I wouldn't naturally move my hands like I am right now. Right. But when you do that on video, it shows that you're not like closed in. You don't have your hands held to your body. That's just stuff you learn by watching yourself do it. So you have to do it wrong to be able to do it right. So yeah, you're totally right, Jimmy.
On the other side of that, though, it does help to, if it helps you get started to emulate somebody else. So let's say you want to make a Sam Maloof chair. Okay, don't make your end goal to be Sam Maloof, but use that as like, okay, I'm going to make his chair, and then I'm going to make another version, and I'm going to incorporate some of my things into it until your personality comes out into whatever you're making. So you can use that as a starting point, but don't use that as an ending point.
So that's excellent. Who are some of the people that you emulated when you got started?
Video wise?
Yeah, like just style and everything.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Diresta for sure. There's, if you go back in my catalog, there's some sped up things where you don't see me talking. Steve Ramsey and Mark Spagnuolo, the big hitters, and then I realized, okay, that's too much work. All that, and so then I tried to dumb them down where I just did voiceovers, and then I thought, oh, that's kind of boring. And out of all those different iterations came out what you see now, which is this over-exaggerated dude making things or whatever. But I found my voice trying out different things.
Jimmy, is there anybody that you've been doing videos on YouTube for a long time, so is there anybody who has influenced how you do them, or was your stuff just kind of like the utility of fast forward to get through it, no talking to avoid having to do that?
I guess, that was a sort of a utility that was kind of born out of just necessity. But being proposed with this question, I think if I had to really say like where I get a lot of my inspiration or my early inspiration from was, I guess it would be like watching the Discovery Channel, and where like you would watch Jesse James and those guys and showing a lot of the detail of the work. I guess a lot of that, just sort of like the maker genre that took hold of Discovery Channel and TLC in the early 2000s. I was so inundated with that. I watched every segment of that stuff that I could find, the American Choppers and all the Jesse James stuff and the Monster Garage stuff and the slow-mo shots of Sparks and stuff like that. That's definitely been, an inspiration for a lot of the stuff that I do early on too. In the beginning I was using a flip camera. Now I watch that and it's like watching like a flip open cell phone video. It's so bad. And at the time I'm like, this is good enough. This is good enough. It's good enough. And yesterday I just finally got a new camera, a new selfie camera or a new vlogging camera, a Canon G7X, and it's beautiful. It's just the video's incredible. And so I'll be able to do more of that sexy sparks and splashes of like when the hammer comes down, it's a boom and a pound that bounces and the sparks splash out and the logo comes up. All that stuff. That's really...
Make sure you put that on Vimeo.
Yeah, definitely. I just started a Vimeo channel because I heard YouTube's not doing well.
Bob, I'm curious to know if you tried to emulate anybody when you first started.
Yeah, the fast forward stuff was definitely, I've talked about this before, was definitely, I saw Jimmy's videos and thought, like, I really like how he gets through a whole lot of stuff, but I want more information, so I wanted to do voiceover over the fast motion stuff. So that was definitely a big part of it. But also the talking stuff, I think Wheezy Waiter was probably the biggest inspiration for how I edited, because I've always loved the way he does these really fast jump cuts. And so he'll have a whole conversation that there's like basically no dead space in between it. And it just keeps the pace, like, just moving along. And he's really funny and engaging and stuff too. So I think that probably drew me into that style. But I've tried to back off of that a little bit, try to loosen it up a little bit so that there's a little more breathing room, because I think I overdid that at first, trying to cut out all the dead space. So it was just talk, 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 talk. But that definitely gave me somewhere to start, and gave me a thing that I knew that I liked, that I saw, that I watched on a regular basis, and then was able to emulate too much and then back off of some over time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another trick to do is in the video space, if you're doing woodworking stuff, maybe don't try to emulate or try to do what another woodworker's doing. Maybe look outside, like, look for a photographer or a comedy channel or somebody who, if you do copy that and use that as your starting point, people might not notice so much, So look outside and that goes with furniture building too. Like, you want to get into woodworking and you want to do something different. Look at architecture instead of other woodworking projects. Bring influences in from outside the circle.
One thing I like is when I see a video that is a direct answer to somebody else's video. So somebody will make an object, and somebody go, well, I saw John Smith's object in his video, and this is my answer to John Smith's object in my video. So that's another way of being able to sort of copy somebody, but give them all the credit in the world and give it a generational thing, so that you could see what comes next. I mean, yesterday Ben and I were talking about, and what are some of his successful products, and Ben said the stool where he takes a pail and fills it with cement and puts sticks in it. And then he said all of a sudden they were popping up all around the world, and in videos and pictures. So I think that's cool too, when people give somebody an excuse to make a video because they see somebody else do that project, and then they want to just straight up copy it or give it their own flair and say, I'm making this because this person did this. That's another way of developing, a video style. That's just the opposite of what you said, Dave, but it's definitely a good place for, newbie to start.
There's no one answer for anything. Anything that we are doing as furniture makers or crafters or YouTubers, there's no one set way to do something.
Yeah, just so you know, we have no idea what we're doing.
We don't know.
Nothing.
We're making it up as we go along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We have any more questions?
I think that's good.
Okay. One last thing, though, that I think we should talk about real quick before we wrap up is ideas for future shows.
Yes.
Does anybody have any ideas that we can kind of throw out there and start brewing on for future weeks?
One of the things that I kind of wanted to do, which we couldn't figure out how to make into a full episode, was make an episode about future episodes. I kind of wanted to brainstorm some topic ideas and just throw some things out there to see, start writing on the whiteboard and see where that goes. Guys, gals, I need your help. There's a subject that I want to talk about in the future, and that is mental health and how that helps or intertwines with making, and so I need a starting point, because it's something I want to talk about, but I don't know where to start and what the subject could be. I get emails all the time, and I'm sure you guys do too, of people saying, I'm depressed, or I have this, and woodworking or metalworking really helps. Your videos are inspiring, and so I want to expand on that a little bit, but I don't know where to take it, because I can't speak as an expert on this, and I don't want to offend or seem insensitive about the subject, but it is something I want to talk about.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting, but I'm with you. Like, I would want to kind of be informed about that, because I wouldn't want to kind of speak out of turn there.
Yes.
Let's see. So somebody asked recently for us to do the 2-question format that we did. He said it was episode 86, and I honestly don't remember what that one was, but
That was a fun one.
yeah, I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember what we talked about. So we'll have to go back and listen to it to make sure we don't ask the same questions. But I think we should do that more often, asking each other questions, because I think it's cool, kind of a cool way to interview each other, you know?
Yeah.
Because usually when 3 of us are on other shows or we do interviews, we pretty much get asked the same questions over and over. Mm-hmm. Because in that audience, those questions haven't been answered yet. So, I mean, I understand it. But, like, everybody who listens to the show knows our origin stories and knows when we went full-time and knows when we, you know, what makes us interested and all that stuff.
So maybe possibly have people say, David, I want you to ask Jimmy this. I'm open, like, I can come up with my own questions, but I'm also open to suggestions on what you guys want me to ask you guys.
Interesting.
That doesn't make no sense, but yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. If you want to do that, if somebody wants to do that, tag us, tag the person on Twitter that you want to ask the question, but not the person that you want to be asked of.
There you go.
So that way nobody is tempted to like answer it over Twitter. So if you want me to ask David a question, tag at I like to make stuff with 1F. Ask David, blah 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 blah, but don't tag him. Cool? Let's do that because that'd be fun. We can each keep track of our own questions and stuff. But we should definitely do that as a show soon, and probably more often than we do that.
Yeah.
What other ideas do we have?
What about workwear? A show on workwear? Because I've been getting a lot of emails about some specific companies that are making all kinds of new workwear. And you guys know I experimented with workwear. And the Samurai Carpenter has his leather vest, his famous leather vest. And, you know, if there's any custom workwear or any workwear you guys do when you work, you know, we all do different types of work. And what are you comfortable working in? What kind of shoes do you wear? That kind of stuff. You know, as it relates relates to making in the shop. Just an idea.
Yeah, I'm very conscious of what I'm wearing when I'm on camera. And, you know, and the shoes that I have are special shoes for my situation. So, yeah, that's a great topic.
Video making shoes.
Yeah, and like anytime the camera's not on, David's like bikini in the shop all the time. Mm-hmm. I know he's
like right now. Can you guys see my bikini?
You guys asking me to put my camera down? You want me to point my camera down? Is that what
No.
It's too early.
Pants are for the shop. That's it.
Yeah, I like to wear clothes in the shop.
Well, there's got to be some other like really good ideas, and if we don't have any right now, that's okay. But I would love it if people would tweet us ideas. And we do get emails from people with ideas sometimes, and a lot of them are very similar, or they're like uber specific to where we couldn't really make a good show about them. And I hate to not answer those questions, but you know, like it's hard to make an entire conversation about a really specific kind of one situation question. So if we've not answered yours, sorry, that may be why.
And I will say we will most likely avoid any kind of legal law type things.
Yeah.
Every once in a while we get the like, am I liable for this? Or how do I start a business? And I am in no position to answer those questions. And I don't want to give out any information that could potentially put you in a bad situation. So
just make stuff, that's all.
But
don't worry about it.
David does have a good video. David does have a good video on his channel where he talked to a lawyer about a lot of those things, and that's definitely a good watch for somebody that wants to get some things answered.
Cool.
Yeah. Somebody did ask recently about whether or not to trademark, and that might be an interesting, because I think we would probably have some different views on that. You know, whether or not to trademark your logo, or like how far you take brand enforcement and things like that. So maybe we can talk about that at some point.
Okay.
Okay, so I've written those down. If you guys have questions that you want us to talk about, send them over, because it is kind of difficult for us to come up with stuff to talk about every week, even though we like hanging out. We all think about other things all week long until we get to this point, and then we're like, okay, now what are we going to talk about?
Right.
So if you can help boost our idea pool, that would be great. All right, what are we watching? What are we into?
I am going to talk about my buddy Gil. Months and months and months ago, I hope I didn't already talk about this, but my buddy Gil is a new friend. He wrote me an email and said, hey, I'm taking a vacation. I live in Australia, Melbourne. I'm taking a vacation, and I want to come to New York and hang out with you. And just like I do all the time, I said, yeah, sure, come on by. And I completely forgot. Months and months go by. He's like, "Oh, we still on? I'm coming in a week." And I was like, "Yeah, come on by." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" I panicked and I checked. I'm like, "Okay, I got the window open." Anyway, Gil came and he spent 2 days with us working. It was the week I made the frames, and he is a sweet, really sweet guy. Gil Poziansky. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, but the link is in the channel. The Kosha Tony Stark. And while he was here with me, he interviewed me, and there's a couple of videos of him interviewing me personally. But Gil is a maker, and he actually works for the city of Melbourne, developing maker spaces in the libraries and stuff. So it was great to meet you, Gil. So hopefully this will give you a little channel boost. And so check out Gil.
Bob, I'm going to have you go next just in case we're going to pick the same thing.
I think we probably are.
Okay, then I have a backup. I'll let you go next.
Okay, good. So I've been listening to a new podcast. Tell me if I'm right. Yep. The Modern Maker podcast, which is Ben Ueda, good friend of ours, Chris Salamone, who I've never met in person but seems like a super cool dude, and Mike Montgomery, who I also have never met but seems like a super cool dude. All three of those guys are makers, woodworkers, and they all do modern furniture type stuff. All have kind of unique styles, but in the same area. They three got together and made a podcast, and they're 5 episodes in, and I think it's great. I think they have a great chemistry. They're talking about some really good kind of central design stuff, design ideas, form and function, and strengths and weaknesses, and where they came from and everything. And for being only 5 episodes in, I'm thoroughly impressed with how well they've got it down. So I think this is going to be one of those podcasts that 20 or 30 episodes from now is just like the essential listen for maker type people. So yeah, go check it out. I'll have it linked in the description, but you can also find it on iTunes and all that. The Modern Maker podcast.
So here's the thing about this podcast. If you ask me to list my favorite woodworking or maker designers, all 3 of those people would be probably in my top 5.
Yeah.
All of them make incredibly beautiful things. They have amazing design skills, and so it's so cool that they're all together making this podcast, which just has a really good flow to it. So, yeah. All right, so my pick is his channel is called Steady Craftin' by the Craftsman, Crafsman, and they're fun little videos, and they're crafty, and this guy never shows his face. He never shows his hands. He's always wearing gloves, so his identity is completely hidden, and the humor is very subtle, but I love it. And I normally don't like crafty videos with humor because humor is a really hard thing to pull off, even though I try all the time and fail. But usually I when I watch these craft videos, I want to learn something, and with this one I do learn something, and I get a little giggle every time. They're just really good, and it's a really small channel, and I wish it was bigger, and I wish he made more videos.
Interesting. Check that out. Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this week. Before we go, I got to thank our Patreon supporters because they are what helps us keep doing this, and we really appreciate that. Also, thanks to everybody for, we've been in and out for the last few weeks. We've had a couple of weeks where we've missed episodes. Thanks for hanging around and for being supportive and patient and stuff. It's really cool. We don't get pushback from that stuff. So we're really grateful for that. But especially thanks to Make, Build, Modify and Luis Gonzalez. I got to say a special thanks to Justin, Make, Build, Modify. So he's one of our top patrons, and at that top level, we do a once a month hangout over Google Hangouts with those patrons after we record the show. The past several, 6 weeks or something, our shows, we've had to move days and we've had to move times, and that messes up scheduling with when he's available to, do the hangout. He was gracious enough to last month to just be like, don't worry about it this month. We'll just do it next month, which was this past Monday. And I had to tell him again, I'm sorry, man, we can't record on Monday. Is there any way we can push it to next week? And he was super gracious to be like, yeah, sure. Whatever's cool. So that's really cool of you, and we're grateful for Justin and Luis and everybody else who supports us over there. It does mean a lot, so thank you guys. And if you want to kind of join that group, go to patreon.com/makingit, and yeah, that's a way to do it. Also, somebody was asking on Twitter if we had any shirts. David, do we have shirts?
Good question. We do. If you go to makingitpodcast.com, there will be a link in the right-hand column to where you can find shirts and sweatshirts.
Yes. There you go. Hopefully someday we'll expand that out a little bit, but maybe add some stickers or stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe one of these days. Cool. Well, I'm glad that we are back on schedule, and thanks for being with us this week, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
Later. Hi, guys. I'm going to stand up now. You guys want to turn your heads away from the camera?
Okay, ready? Go. Bye.
See ya.
Screenshot.
Okay.